No one will build a pipeline to Tidewaters if there's a ban on tankers. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard, a ban on tankers.
We've got quite the developments here. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we got Danielle Smith and Doug Ford absolutely blasting Mark Carney and the Liberals, demanding they get rid of EV mandates, demanding they get rid of the tanker ban. Meanwhile, Mark Carney's been telling his own team they need to find savings by the end of the year because they know his $92 billion deficit, projected deficit, looks really bad, and Canadians aren't going to stand for that. It was also found that the Liberals were testing the Elbows Up campaign just days after Donald Trump imposed tariffs. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off from Table Salt, says Stats Canada report reveals extreme negligence by the government. Are we surprised? With many cities in Canada only building 10% of the homes required to accommodate the millions of immigrants who were let in between July 2021 and July 2024. So we can see it highlighted here. I'll make it big. So Table Salt got this 94 highlighted. That's 94 of 1,800 in St. John. So you can see the city here, population growth, 20,000 people, number of new dwellings completed, 1,818, number of new dwellings completed per 1,000 persons of growth, 94, as in 10%. And some cities fare a little bit better, like Charlottetown, Fredericton, and Kelowna, Victoria being the highest on this list. Doesn't really matter how you compare it, even Victoria at 419 per 1,000, that's still 41.9%, as in not even half the houses required for the amount of people coming in. So really, we should be cutting immigration by 75%, 80%. Got this one from Blacklock's reporter. It has come out that the Liberals will not be telling Canadians what major energy infrastructure projects, mega projects they'll be building unless they're finalized. We get no say in the matter. It says here, Cabinet will not publicly discuss industrial projects for fast-tracked approval until they're finalized, says Natural Resource Minister Tim Hodgson. I never deal with the press, he told reporters. It says those conversations are ongoing. They're going to happen in private. We need to retool our economy, said Hodgson. To do so, we need to get going as fast as we can. It's funny because they talk about being fast. Well, there's still nothing on the plate, and then you guys are going on summer break. You think they would have 2 or 3 or 4 projects already lined up. The only project lined up right now are 3 ferries being built for BC Ferries, and they're being built in China. I guess they're rolling out their plan on schedule to help enrich themselves and China. Got this one from the Globe and Mail. Cabinet ministers told to find ambitious savings by the end of summer. So it says here, ministers must find ways to reduce spending by 7.5% in the fiscal year that begins April 1st, followed by 10% savings in the next year and 15% in 2028-2029. Mark Carney feeling the heat here. He knows he's got to cut some stuff because $92 billion deficit doesn't look good. It looks like someone doesn't know how to balance the budget. Then again, maybe Mark Carney's financial advisor is Justin Trudeau and the budget will balance itself. Got this one from Blacklock's reporter. Looks like they're getting into a bit of a tussle here. Blacklock's reporter versus Attorney General of Canada. So this is in response to them being forced to share subscription, password, and content data with the government. The government gives money, our money, tax dollars, billions of dollars, to the CBC and other mainstream media, and then they're forcing independent media to give up their subscription information, including passwords. This is absurd, so I believe that's why they're suing them. Blacklock's also reporting this one, making headline news. Main themes of the Liberal Party's Elbow Up re-election campaign were tested in confidential federal focus groups months before the U.S. tariffs documents show. Pollsters hired by the Privy Council found many Canadians were unsettled by Donald Trump and feared mass layoffs from tariffs. So it goes on to say Trump was elected November 4th. The Privy Council commissioned focus groups November 12th. So just a week after Trump gets in, they commissioned these focus groups between the 12th and the 21st in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Quebec, New Brunswick, PEI, and Newfoundland and Labrador. The research conducted under a $1.6 million contract by Strategic Counsel, a Toronto pollster. They wasted $1.6 million of our money to test if Elbows Up was a good campaign for the next election. This is absurd. They have to pay this back. They can't just waste our money to help themselves get reelected. They need to go to prison for this. Meanwhile, we've got Ryan Garrison posting this clip. So this is Anita Nand just yesterday admitting that the government imposed policies on Canadians that would hurt the economy.
We heard Canadians asking their government for strong action on affordability. That is why on day one, we eliminated the consumer carbon tax tax.
This is admitting that because they imposed the carbon tax, that this affects affordability in Canada. They imposed it, and now they're removing it. I wish there weren't so many clueless Canadians in our country that keep voting for these guys. Even better yet, it would be nice if we had a justice system that would punish them. Jumping over to Calgary, we've got Danielle Smith and Doug Ford meeting, breaking down some trade barriers, and blasting Carney and the Liberals for reckless policies that are destroying Canada.
Ontario's premier is in Alberta, where he joined his counterpart in taking steps to enhance economic opportunities between the two provinces.
We're signing 2 memorandums of understanding that will see us advance pipelines and pathways to boost exports of homegrown energy and critical minerals to markets across Canada and across the world, and work collaboratively to support both Ontario's automotive industry as well as Alberta's liquor manufacturing industry, industries that contribute substantially to our provincial economies.
These agreements are transformational. Ontario and Alberta are working together to build new energy and trade infrastructure, including pipelines and rail lines, so we can unlock the full potential of Canada's economy by diversifying our trading partners and bringing our natural resources to new customers and new markets.
The 2 memorandums of understanding focus on energy priorities, trade, and interprovincial cooperation. The premier says the best way to protect Canadian workers from U.S. tariffs and economic uncertainty is to build infrastructure to get resources into new markets. He signed a memorandum with Manitoba's premier.
This greaseball, Doug Ford. He was just hanging out with Chrystia Freeland at a family barbecue. You'll see soon he'll be blasting the Liberals. This guy plays both sides.
In May to boost the movement of goods and labor between the 2 provinces.
First up, we got this greaseball, Doug Ford, blasting the Liberals and essentially David Eby on the no tanker ban.
To succeed, to build a more competitive, resilient, and self-reliant future, we need the federal government to do its part. We need the federal government to cut red tape and bring regulatory certainty so Canada can attract the kind of private sector investments that will be critical to build this energy and trade infrastructure. No one will build a pipeline to Tidewaters if there's a ban on tankers. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard, a ban on tankers. No one will invest in opening a mine if it takes 15 years to get it to yes. It's time to end excuses. And it's time to start building, and we need to start building now.
Well, I don't disagree with Doug Ford here. He flip-flops more than Mark Carney's pancake flipping skills. I think Doug Ford will help Conservatives quite a bit, but shouldn't lead them. We needed his help 4 to 5 months ago, but didn't get much. Yeah, Doug Ford sold out Canadians during the election. Doug Flop should pick a lane. I cannot trust this guy. He says one thing in his podium speeches, then does another in his policies. He is a liberal in conservative clothing. And here we've got Danielle Smith absolutely blasting Mark Carney for his ridiculous EV mandate.
But we cannot achieve our shared provincial goals without cooperation from the federal government. It's vital that the federal government gets fully on board with creating the conditions necessary to strengthen Canada's economy and competitiveness, improve investor confidence, and grow productivity. Ottawa must answer our calls and remove all federal barriers that have harmed Canada's ability to grow the energy sector and other industries, such as mining and manufacturing. And this includes, but is not limited to, repealing or amending the Impact Assessment Act and the oil tanker ban. We're also working to repeal the net zero power regulations and the proposed oil and gas production cap. We also call on the federal government to repeal their electric vehicle mandate that comes into effect next year. Last year, only 4.2% of the cars sold in Alberta were zero-emission vehicles. And the federal government's EV mandate says that 20% of cars sold in 2026 must be zero emissions vehicles. We buy about 200,000 cars, so that would be about 40,000 cars. So we would have to buy nearly every single zero emission vehicle manufactured in Ontario last year to hit the 20% target. And we're just one province. So removing federal barriers will allow Alberta and Ontario to attract investment and project partners we need to get shovels in the ground, grow industries, and create jobs.
I love that she came with the stats here. It just makes it seem so stupid that they'd have to buy all the EVs just for Alberta. Not only that, if this goes forward, Alberta only buying 4.2% of EVs, that remaining 16% that it would be forced, that'll be gas-powered cars that get nailed on a tax. So if you're one of the people who buys the cars at the end of the year where the quota of gas cars is already met, then you'd have to buy a gas car plus a huge penalty on top. You know what's going to happen too then? People will go down to America to buy a car versus buying them in Canada. Will further destroy this industry, once again sending more money and creating more jobs in America.
Excited to continue collaborating with Ontario so we can reach our shared goals, including to advance pipelines and responsible energy development.
Rogers laid off 1,000, the Bay laid off 8,000, Microsoft laid off 10,000. Who's buying new cars? Can the government be any more delusional? They're not delusional. This is all about money. They want to push industry over to EV and green. Brookfield has the stranglehold on that already, and anyone holding the shares makes the big dollars. Next up, we've got Netanyahu going over to Washington for ceasefire talks with Trump.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu departed Sunday for Washington, where he'll meet U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday to discuss a U.S.-backed ceasefire plan.
I think it's tragic, the tragic reality of the world, that the savior of Israel is Donald Trump.
Gershon Baskin has worked on negotiations with Hamas for almost 2 decades. He has no doubt it's Trump who will decide what comes next in Gaza.
The big question is, has Trump made a decision to bring this war in Gaza to an end? That's what he's been tweeting. That's what's in his social media. The question is, the man is unpredictable.
Trump wants that as his legacy. He likes being the guy who brings peace. He wants to bring peace with Russia and Ukraine. Just last week, he helped Pakistan and India sign a deal for peace. This one here, India-Pakistan ceasefire appears to hold despite accusations of violations. This is brought upon by Trump. President Donald Trump made the initial announcement of a break in fighting over social media. There is a recent report here. India's Modi tells Trump there was no U.S. mediation in Pakistan truce. Regardless, Donald Trump wants this part of his legacy. I think it's likely that this will happen.
For Israelis who've been demanding their government agree to a ceasefire and bring back the hostages Hamas still holds, the hope is this deal will become reality.
I really cross my fingers, but I don't know. I think it depends on Trump and how much pressure I will put on Bibi, because I think if it is dependent on Bibi, this will not happen.
The deal would reportedly involve Hamas returning living and dead hostages to Israel in exchange for Palestinian prisoners, though hostage families worry not soon enough.
We're very concerned that it's going to be only the partial deal, that they're going to bring 10 hostages alive and 18 deceased hostages and then finish with it. That's not good for us, and that's not good for the hostages that will stay behind.
After 21 months of war, much is riding on this White House meeting. The question, can a president known as an agent of chaos and division, in this case, be a force for peace?
Guess we're going to find out. We also got this one here, once again talking about housing prices crashing. This report coming from Vancouver.
This open area kitchen has gas stove, and it's so perfect for entertaining.
Newly renovated homes like this used to sell fast, but this listing has been on the market for more than a month now.
It does surprise me. I thought we were, gonna have an offer by now, but it is just the way the market is.
This real estate agent says she's been seeing this trend since the beginning of the year.
Some listings are dropping 100,000. Some are like higher priced properties are dropping by 200,000. Some listings I'm seeing them sitting on the market for like 3, 4, or 5 months or longer. And some of them are not getting any showings.
In June, Metro Vancouver saw a 24% spike in the amount of listings on the market compared to the same month last year, but home sales dipped nearly 10%. And it's the same.
This is because of big foreign Asian money is fleeing. The investors are not spending their money in Canada anymore because the prices are too high. Canadians can't afford this stuff. Unless you've already got a house or 2 or 3 and you sell a couple and then you upgrade. For the most part, at these price points, it's not Canadians buying these unless they already have equity in the market.
Same story in Toronto, with listings up 31%, but home sales down around 2.5%. Calgary saw an 83% increase in listings, but sales dropped 16.5%. Some experts say the drop in demand is partially due to the uncertainty brought on by the trade war with the U.S. and fears of a recession here in Canada.
People are worried about the economy. When they're worried about their job, they're not rushing out to buy a home.
Interest rates are another factor contributing to the slowdown.
I think we need to remember that we're looking at very high interest rates still. So sure, they've come down a little bit. And those are still twice as high as what we had a couple of years ago.
For buyers looking for the possibility of another interest rate hike, the central bank will make its next announcement at the end of the month. Jessica Chung, CBC.
That's an important announcement because Mark Carney is supposed to make a deal with Trump by July 21st. The Bank of Canada can cut rates if he makes a good deal. Otherwise, they have to increase rates, which then further hurts Mark Carney's image. Taking a look at those interest rates, Justin Trudeau promised that interest rates would stay low forever. Go ahead, buy a house. So everyone did, and then the interest rates went up and people got screwed over by that. And now they're starting to come down, but this takes a good 1.5 to 2 years to fully go through the market. So the interest rate hikes back in 2022 going all the way to 2023 here, those are just hitting us now. And the rate cuts, we won't feel those for another 1.5 to 2 years. Not to mention, we also have a ton of mortgages because people bought into houses here and had 4-year or 5-year fixed mortgages. Those are coming up right now between 2025 and 2026. People need to get new mortgages. That's why we're seeing these stories where people can't get a new mortgage from the bank. They're not allowing it. So then people are foreclosing. They're desperately trying to sell. That's why we're starting to see the crash in this economy. People are having to get new mortgages. They can't, and they're desperately selling them at lower and lower prices. Then people do comparables and it just starts bringing the prices down. There'll be a certain floor where it'll hit and people will start to buy back in, but we're not near that point because the investors have left. What is the floor that Canadians are willing to buy in at? Is it $1 million house in Toronto? Is it 800,000? Is it back at 600,000? In Toronto, I talk about maybe like Mississauga, somewhere not right downtown Toronto, but we're talking about Vancouver, maybe it would be like Burnaby. You go proper Vancouver, you'd be paying $3 million, 2.5 for a house in Vancouver. So the people will decide where that floor is, but these interest rate cuts, we won't be feeling these for a while.